was the best thing ever. And then we know the history behind that as well, moving through to the Highlanders, missed out for 3 years. So to play his 83rd game at halfback and break that New Zealand record is an achievement to Aaron Smith. I know his partners over there as well. She flew into Dublin. Also, the locking pair, Retallick and Whitelock, that's a record for those two. Wait and see whether or not Sam Whitelock will follow Brodie and bring back the mullet. We'll have to wait and see there. But a couple of key matchups, and looking forward to the two first fives going head-to-head as well. So, yeah, some big games. Couple of big games, and the Māori All Blacks as well.
Yeah, that should be another a good game there, Ra. What do you reckon up against Chile?
Yeah, well, Chile apparently played Brazil, the team that the Māori All Blacks played last weekend, and Brazil pipped them, Brazil beat them. So one would assume that, and especially after the Māoris, that was quite a close game for them against this minnow team, minnow country Brazil. Should steamroll Chile, and I reckon they will. But it's good for the growth of the game, and actually, at Chile, to be honest, they've actually got quite a long history of rugby. I mean, there was that infamous incident, and it was made into a movie where the rugby students were flying over to Argentina, and their plane crashed up in the Andes. And, they sort of ended up resorting to cannibalism to survive in the mountains. And that was a rugby team. That was back in the 1970s, I think, and, there were books written on it. But the Chileans have been playing rugby for quite a while. Whether or not they can transfer that form onto the field is anybody's guess. But look, I'll tell you, another talking point in world rugby is the German side. Apparently, they've got 1 or 2 games to qualify for next year's World Cup, and the talk around Berlin or around that part of the world is that they'd love to play the All Blacks. How the All Blacks are in Europe at the moment. And look, I'll tell you, I always tend to talk about the global game and countries who, if rugby was their sport of choice or somewhere near the top, then they'd make a big difference and impact in the sport. I reckon Germany's another one. I always touch on USA. But Germany, we've seen them in soccer, one of the best countries in the world. Germans are so analytical in the way they do things is they break it down and until they find some kind of winning formula. I'd like to see them sort of promoted in world rugby. I think they'll adapt to the game really well, and if they get more players into it, another country to watch the space on.
I was talking to one of JT's mates, I think, earlier this morning, Des Reedy. Now, one of the things he was saying was that no disrespect to countries like Brazil, no disrespect to countries like Chile, but, the Maori, New Zealand Maori team should be playing at least second-tier teams, if not first-tier teams. What do you reckon, Reno?
Totally agree. I totally agree. I thought this whole tour itself has kind of been reflective of that, and you're right on the cards where the All Black team will play your top-tier teams in the Māori All Blacks, unfortunately, look at playing, like you say, Brazil and Chile. It's a shame, I suppose, in that regards, and he's pretty well nailed it on the head. We would all love to see the Māori team play against some of these top-tier teams. I suppose you've got to ask yourself whether or not the top-tier teams will have a full strength team to play on Māori teams. So, I don't know. You're right, Keithy. I don't know. But, hey, I suppose we should be just excited. At least we can't be happy all the time. We've got some games.
Yes, exactly.
For our three
at least they're getting some games.
The Black,
That's
Ferns,
true.
Māori All Blacks, and the All Blacks. So, it's not that often you get the three teams out on a tour and you get to watch a whole lot of rugby on telly. All right for us sitting at home, but I suppose you can't stick your nose up to any teams who want to step out and give you a bit of a run. It's like Ra said, look, Germany, you put the hand out and they want to take on the ABs. So if that's the way it's going to head to, I suppose you just got to be appreciative because when you make a Māori team, I'm guessing, you're representing your iwi, hapu, whānau, everything like that, and you do yourself proud. Doesn't really matter who you would play, I would guess. It's all about the mana and being proud to be out there and playing.
What do you reckon there, Ra?
Oh, yeah, I've always, like Ren, I've always sort of been of that frame of mind that the Māori team should be playing a lot of these second and third tier countries. It's good for the growth of the game. It's a good way to spread our culture around the world as well. And good experience for, not just them, but also our players to sort of mix and mingle with the minnows of the game. And, I reckon that'd be a fantastic ambassadorial or promotional team to sort of do that. They're at that level of rugby that a lot of these up-and-coming countries need to play against before they actually hit the big guns like the ABs or the Springboks, just to sort of see where their game is at. And, it should have been done ages ago. But hopefully they do sort of learn something from this tour of South America in terms of getting a Tier 1 nation to send, their B or C team to those countries to help uplift the game and promote it there.
True enough. Now, what's been interesting, we've heard, Reno, was that Tana Umaunga's taken a bit of a demotion, I suppose, in the setup with the Blues. How do you think that's going to work, man?
Yeah, I suppose there'd be certain reasons and personal reasons why he's took this upon himself to take a backward step. Leon McDonald's come forward as well. I just wonder whether or not his pride's been dented a little after what Alama Urumi has done with the Auckland team, in the winning the Mitre 10 championship. One of these opening there, they may be looking at him to come on through eventually, in the future to take over. But it sounds like Leon's got the job for the next few years. A couple of other players are coming behind to help. I know that Tana's going to stay there and help with the backs as such, so he'll have a bit of a role there. But I suppose, might be coming to the end of his tether, and his coaching and everything like that, and that's just part of life. It's a roller coaster, like JT said earlier on in the show. Everything's a roller coaster, whether you're a player, coach, or just part of the structure, ups and downs. You look at Queensland Rugby League, they dropped Trevor Gilmeister. It's a big chop. And that would have shocked a few of the Maroon fans because he's been a legend for the Mighty Maroons, and he's gone from the new uptake. That's just part of it now, I would guess, It's just one of those things. You're either in or out, or you take the chop. It's a cutthroat industry.
A bit of a chop there for Tana. What do you reckon there, eh?
Oh yeah, but those the highs and lows of any sort of sport. Hey, you've got to take the good with the bad, and hopefully, you do sort of keep the faith that they have made the right decision in a lot of the choices that they do make. But boys, can I just get back to? I'm not too sure if it's New Zealand Rugby League or New Zealand Rugby Union, but I think they were keen to get an Oceania tournament going next year. I think it is Rugby League.
Yeah, it is,
to help kind of boost the game. And I think that's a good thing. I mean, we were just talking about the Maori ABs, how they're getting around a lot of these minnow countries. Good to see if it is league that they are sort of getting back into playing or helping promote the game again into a lot of our Pacific Island neighbours. Countries where a lot of their players actually coming up playing NRL or playing for a lot of our countries. So it can only be a good thing. And, once again, in terms of the league, it can only benefit the sport here in the Oceania region.
So do you mean, when you're talking Oceania, do you mean Samoa, Tonga, Fiji, New Zealand, maybe Papua New Guinea, Australia too? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, I think so. They even had I think they were looking at some other countries just to try and help sort of, boost up the game. But that's what it's all about, and that's what needs to happen. To keep their code sort of interested in a lot of countries who don't really know a lot about it. It's all about the growth and the spread of the game. So many codes and sports out there to choose from, and a lot of them so similar in their nature. And as we know, the sort of oval ball game is comes in many shapes and forms, and a good point of difference is to sort of try and get it into these countries even more and just expand it.
Hopefully you've kind of woken up there a bit. JT, have you heard about this?
What was that, mate? I just heard all the union talk and I sort of drifted off.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
I had heard a little bit about it, and I think I touched on it earlier. That's obviously the next phase of developing the game, is strengthening our ties, our bonds in the Pacific. Notably from the last World Cup, Tonga's success, and the way they carried themselves and the way they performed on the field. So we need to build on that. We've had a PNG team in the Queensland Cup, which is the next step down from NRL. They've been in the Queensland Cup now for 3 years. I think they actually won it last year. There's talk of getting a Fiji team into the New South Wales Cup, which is the New South Wales version of the second tier competition to NRL. That'll be another good thing. So that needs to be progressed. And so there is. I think I did hear somewhere about talk of this tournament that Ra was talking about for next year. I don't know if it's a 3-way or a 4-team competition, but whatever it is, it needs to be played because at the moment, Rugby League Internationals are got a bit of momentum going. So I think we need to build on that to strengthen the game, definitely.
And they, in your opinion, do they seem to be going through the right kind of, growing it the right kind of way? What do you reckon, JT?
Previous to this year, I'd say no, but to get that game against Tonga, between Tonga and Australia, up and running within, probably a month or maybe 2 months of talking about it, there was yes, then it was no, then it was yes, then it was no, and then, it was finally decided that it was yes, and I think there was a good, definitely a good thing for the game and a good way to build on that momentum that Tonga brought to the World Cup last year.
Right, excellent. What else has been happening sports-wise around the traps there? Anything, Reno?
Yeah, well, just touching back on it, it is confirmed next year the Oceania Cup, that is happening. Also prior to that, too, the return of the NRL Nines. That's back in Australia as well. So there's a lot going on there. And talking of the Oceania Cup for next year, England are touring down, Great Britain, I should say, the Great Britain Lions this time, will be touring down in the Southern Hemisphere. So that's brought it together. And just quickly on their 2021 Rugby League World Cup that's coming up, Tonga have been named as the top seeds for their tournament as well. So, there is a lot going on there. Man, I can hear the old birds in the back of JT's place there. Those birds into GC. Good old times. But there is a lot going on for the Rugby League. There's also the NRL that's been pushed through the school as well. A youth or secondary school competition to get underway. So, a lot in the background. So, it's happening now. Plenty happening.
There is plenty happening. Now, right, I'm not sure if you've been keeping up, but is it the Auckland Tuatara? They went up against the Perth Heat in the, must be the Australian Baseball League, where they lost. And, they had their chances from what I heard, the Auckland team. But, they lost, can't remember, was it 3-1 or 4-1 or something like that? Did you happen to catch that there,
No, but it doesn't surprise me. I mean, baseball has been played in New Zealand for a while, but not at the same scale and level as softball, which is why we've been the world champs in softball for so many years now. But baseball's kind of like just a smidgen different. So a lot of our young up and coming players have had that sort of softball background, and they're adapting to the game. I think they've been playing professional baseball in Aussie for quite a few years now. In fact, they've got quite a good little competition set up over there, which is why, the Tuataras are going to be sort of actively involved in from next season maybe. But no, give us a bit of time. I think we'll adapt to baseball as we have softball, and as we know, there's more money in their game, especially if you hit the big times like over in the States or even Japan. So no, it'll be a watch the space. It's still kind of just sort of just catching on here with a lot of our young players, but that may well give them a future professional playing career.
The Breakers, they had a loss last night, didn't they, Reno? They went up against Melbourne, and that game was played down in Invercargill.
Invercargill.
Yeah.
Great to go down there, take it down to the south and give them the exposure. When you think of our local competition back here in Aotearoa, some of those southern teams have been dominant. So good to see them moving the game around, and especially at that level down there in Invercargill. First time they cracked it into the 100 for a while, 101, and they went down by 7 shots. So unfortunately lost to Melbourne. They had it in the bag, the boys, but that's basketball, goes up and down, and the Breakers can always bounce back, and I think for them overall, I think the big picture was just getting it down the Invercargill.
Much been happening over there in the cricket over in Aussie there, JT?
Yeah, so last week they lost the 3 match series, one-day series against South Africa. They got caned, absolutely belted down in